I stared at my phone screen in disbelief, my heart pounding against my ribs. $76.18. That was all that remained in my account after the family reunion at my childhood home. Just yesterday, my balance showed nearly $60,000. I scrolled through a dozen unfamiliar transactions, each one like a knife twisting deeper. The memory of Paul, my brother-in-law, hunched over my laptop last night, flashed in my mind. Suddenly, everything made terrible sense. Before I tell you how I confronted my family about my stolen money, let me know where you are watching from and hit that subscribe button. Trust me, you will want to see what happened when I decided to take back what was rightfully mine. I am Andre, 35 years old, a software engineer with a decent life I built for myself. No wife or kids yet, but I have always prioritized my family above all else. Last weekend was supposed to be a celebration, a time of joy and reconnection. We had gathered at my childhood home for my mother Helen's 65th birthday. It was especially meaningful because Mom had recently completed her final round of chemotherapy. After 18 grueling months, her doctors had finally declared her cancer in remission. The reunion was not just a birthday party, but a celebration of her survival. My sister Marie is 38, 3 years older than me. She married Paul 12 years ago, and they have a son, Jason, who just turned 14. Jason is a bright kid with a passion for computer science, though he has been struggling in school lately. His parents rarely talk about it, but I can tell something is wrong. Paul and I have never really gotten along. He works in sales, jumping from company to company, and has always seemed to resent my stable career in tech. Whenever we get together, he makes subtle digs about how I have it easy, how I do not understand the real world because I just stare at screens all day. I usually let these comments slide for the sake of family peace. My relationship with Marie has always been complicated. As kids, we were inseparable. But after she married Paul, something changed. She became distant, defensive whenever I asked about their lives. Still, I loved her fiercely and wanted to be there for her and Jason. The days leading up to the reunion filled me with excitement and hope. Mom looked healthier than she had in years, her smile no longer strained by pain. I had been saving diligently for the past few years, partly to have a safety net for myself, but largely to create a college fund for Jason. Just last month, I had reached my goal of $25,000 for his education. I also had another $35,000 saved for a down payment on a house I had been eyeing. The thought of telling Jason about his college fund at the reunion made me smile every time. The first day of our gathering went beautifully. We prepared Mom's favorite dishes, shared old stories, and laughed until our sides hurt. I gave Mom a digital photo frame loaded with family pictures from across the decades. Marie and Paul gave her a new set of gardening tools, knowing she was eager to restart her hobby now that she had the energy for it. Jason had made her a handmade card that brought tears to her eyes. After dinner, the adults gathered in the living room with glasses of wine, while Jason asked if he could use my laptop to play some games. I handed it over without a second thought. My nephew was trustworthy, and I had nothing to hide. Besides, all my financial apps required two-factor authentication, or so I thought. As the night progressed, we reminisced about childhood memories, family vacations, and the small moments that had shaped us. For a few precious hours, it felt like old times before illness and adult responsibilities had complicated our lives. Mom looked happier than I had seen her in years, surrounded by her children and grandson. I caught Marie smiling at me across the room, and for a moment I felt that maybe the distance between us was finally closing. It was around 11:30 at night when I went looking for Jason to check if he was ready to turn in. I found my laptop, not with my nephew, but with Paul. He was sitting alone in the darkened kitchen, the blue light from the screen illuminating his face with an eerie glow. His fingers moved quickly across the keyboard, and he did not notice me at first. When I cleared my throat, he nearly jumped out of his skin. He quickly minimized whatever window he had been looking at and forced a smile. Hey, just helping Jason download a new game, he explained, though I noticed Jason was nowhere around. The kid went to bed already. I was just closing everything up. Paul handed me back my laptop with unusual haste, making a point to talk about tomorrow plans, asking if I would join them for a breakfast run to the local diner. Something felt off about his behavior, but I chalked it up to our usual awkwardness. I checked my laptop briefly, and nothing seemed amiss at first glance. The next morning, while getting dressed, I noticed something strange. My wallet, which I always kept in my front jeans pocket, seemed slightly rearranged. My credit cards were not in their usual order, though nothing appeared to be missing. A small voice in the back of my mind raised an alarm, but I silenced it. Who would steal from family, especially during such a meaningful reunion? At breakfast, Paul and Marie announced they needed to leave early. We have an appointment we cannot miss, Marie explained, avoiding my eyes. Mom looked disappointed, but did not press them. As they packed their bags in a hurry, I tried to catch Marie alone to ask if everything was okay, but she remained firmly by Paul's side. After they left, Mom and I sat on the porch, enjoying the mild spring weather. I am worried about them, she confessed, her voice low, even though we were alone. Marie called me last week crying. They are behind on their mortgage. Paul lost another job 3 months ago, and they have been living on credit cards. Why did not they say anything to me, I asked, hurt that my sister would hide such struggles. You know your sister, too proud. Mom sighed. And I think Paul forbade her from asking you for help again. After that time, you paid their credit card debt. I remembered the $15,000 I had lent them 4 years ago to clear their credit card debt. They had promised to pay me back in installments, but after the first 2 payments totaling barely $1,000, the money stopped coming and the subject became taboo. I tried calling Marie that afternoon, but she did not pick up. My texts went unanswered too. The unease I had felt earlier grew stronger. That evening, I hugged Mom goodbye and promised to visit again soon, then drove the 3 hours back to my apartment. It was not until Monday morning, sitting at my desk with a cup of coffee, that I decided to check my bank accounts before starting work. That was when my world collapsed. My primary checking account, which had held over $35,000, now showed a balance of $127.43. My savings account for Jason College Fund, $25,000, was completely empty. With shaking hands, I pulled up the transaction history. Multiple transfers had been made on Saturday night between 11:30 p.m. and 2 a.m., sending money to various accounts I did not recognize. The timing aligned perfectly with when I had caught Paul on my laptop. This was no coincidence. My first call was to the bank fraud department. They took my information, but delivered devastating news the transactions had been authenticated with my correct password security questions and the authentication app on my phone. Since all security protocols had been followed, they could not immediately classify it as fraud. They would investigate, but the process could take weeks. I hung up and opened my laptop, running a security scan. Within minutes, I discovered a keylogger program had been installed, recording every keystroke I made. It must have happened while Jason, or more likely Paul, had my computer. A sickening realization dawned on me. This was not an impulsive theft. It was premeditated, planned before they even arrived at the reunion. Memories flooded back in a painful rush. I had helped Marie and Paul numerous times over the years. Beyond the $15,000 loan, I had paid for Jason's school supplies, covered emergency car repairs, and even bought groceries when things were tight. Each time they promised to pay me back, and each time the money never materialized, I called Marie again and again. It went straight to voicemail. With no other option, I decided to drive to their house. The entire hour-long drive, my emotions cycled between disbelief, anger, and profound hurt. How could my own sister steal from me? How could she be part of something so calculated and cruel? When I pulled into their driveway, I noticed something that made my blood boil: a brand new SUV parked in front of their garage, still with temporary tags. They had complained for years about their old minivan breaking down, but had claimed they could not afford to replace it. Marie answered the door wearing a designer blouse I had never seen before. Her surprise at seeing me quickly morphed into nervousness. "Andre, what are you doing here?" "You should have called first." "I did call." "Many times," I replied, stepping past her into the house. "Where is Paul?" As if on cue, Paul walked in from the kitchen, a smug expression barely concealed beneath a veneer of concern. "What is going on?" "My bank accounts have been emptied," I said, watching their faces carefully. "Nearly $60,000 gone. All transferred out Saturday night when you were using my laptop, Paul." Marie gasped, her hand flying to her mouth in what I now recognized as rehearsed shock. "That is terrible. But surely you do not think we had anything to do with it. Stop lying, Marie," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, despite the rage boiling inside me. "I know it was you and Paul. I found the keylogger on my laptop. I have the transaction times that match exactly when Paul was using my computer. And now, magically, you have a new car and new clothes." Paul stepped forward, his facade of innocence dropping away. His lips curled into a sneer that revealed his true character. "We needed it more than you," he said, his voice dripping with entitlement. "You are single with no responsibilities. We have a kid and bills." Marie did not contradict him. Instead, she crossed her arms defensively. "You have always been the golden child, Andre. Everything comes easy to you. Good grades, good job, good money. Some of us have not been so lucky. Lucky, I could not believe what I was hearing. I worked my ass off for everything I have. I put myself through college with scholarships and night jobs. I lived in a studio apartment and ate ramen for years to save money. And now you have stolen my house down payment and Jason college fund," Paul scoffed. "College fund? Please, you owe us that money. You have been showing off your success for years while we struggled." From the hallway came a small voice that made us all freeze. Uncle Andre Jason stood there, confusion and hurt on his young face. "What is happening? What do you mean about a college fund?" Marie quickly went to her son, putting an arm around his shoulders. "Nothing, honey. Just adult stuff. Go back to your room." But Jason shrugged off her arm, his eyes fixed on me. "Did you really save money for my college?" I nodded, my heart breaking at the thought of what his parents had stolen from him as much as from me. $25,000, Jason. I wanted it to be a surprise when you graduated high school." The look of betrayal on his face as he turned to his parents was devastating. He ran to his room, slamming the door behind him. "Now look what you have done," Marie hissed. "Coming here, upsetting everyone." "I upset everyone. You stole $60,000 from me." I could no longer contain my anger. "It gets worse. While checking my credit report this morning, I found 2 new credit cards opened in my name over the weekend. Care to explain those?" Paul actually smiled, a cold, calculating expression that sent chills down my spine. "Going to the police will not help you. You gave us access to your computer voluntarily. It will be your word against ours. And really, what kind of person would report their own sister and brother-in-law? Think of how it would destroy your mother right after her recovery." That was when I realized just how thoroughly they had planned this betrayal. They had counted on my love for my family to protect them from consequences. "You really thought this through," I said, my voice shaking with fury. "How long have you been planning to rob me?" Blind Marie at least had the decency to look uncomfortable. "It is not robbery, Andre. Think of it as a forced loan." "A loan implies you intend to pay it back," I countered. "Do you?" Paul laughed. "With what you know our situation, we have debts you cannot even imagine. Creditors breathing down our necks. This money is our fresh start." "Fresh start," I echoed in disbelief. "That money was my fresh start. My house down payment, your son college education. We did what we had to do," Marie said, her voice hardening. Paul has been trying to get his business off the ground, but we needed capital. The banks would not lend to us anymore. This is an investment in our future, in Jason's future. An investment I could barely process their warped logic. Paul, what business? Your pyramid schemes. Your gambling. Where has all your money gone over the years? Paul's face contorted with anger. You have no right to judge me. Not everyone can sit in an air-conditioned office writing code all day. The real world is tough. Sometimes you have to take risks. Risks with your own money, not mine, I shouted, my composure finally breaking. Paul stepped closer, jabbing a finger at my chest. What are you going to do about it? Call the cops on your own family. Think about what that would do to your mother. After everything she has been through, you want to tell her that her daughter is going to jail. It was the lowest blow possible, using mom health and recovery as a shield. I reached for my phone, intending to call her anyway. Paul snatched it from my hand. This is your last warning, he growled. Walk away. Forget the money. Or, I swear we will make sure your mother knows exactly what kind of son she raised, one who would send his own sister to prison. My entire body trembled with a rage I had never experienced before. I reached for my bag, which I had placed on the floor when I entered, and said with deadly calm, Then you will not mind what is coming next. Paul and Marie exchanged glances, and then laughed, the sound of their mockery filling the room. They truly believed they had won, that they had me cornered with no options. Suddenly, a loud bang shook the house. The front door flew open with such force that it slammed against the wall. 2 police officers stood in the doorway, flanked by a woman in a business suit holding a briefcase. Paul Thompson and Marie Thompson. One officer asked, though it was clearly a formality, We have a warrant to search these premises in connection with a case of grand theft and identity fraud. The blood drained from Paul's face as the woman in the business suit stepped forward. Mr. Thompson, I am Jessica Winters, fraud investigator with First National Bank. We have been monitoring the suspicious transfers from Mr. Andre Williams' accounts and have tracked them to accounts opened in your name. Marie collapsed onto the couch, her hands covering her face. Andre, what have you done? I pulled a small digital recorder from my bag, the red light, indicating it had been recording our entire conversation. I documented everything. The moment I saw those transactions, I contacted the bank and the police. I filed reports before driving here, and I made sure to get your confession on tape. Paul lunged toward me, but the police officer intercepted him, forcing him against the wall. That is enough, the officer warned. You are already in enough trouble. You do not understand how cybersecurity works. Paul, I explained, a calm settling over me now that justice was in motion. I do not just write code in an air-conditioned office. I specialize in security systems and fraud prevention. The moment I found that keylogger, I was able to trace exactly how you accessed my accounts, what you searched for, and where you sent the money. The fraud investigator nodded. Mr. Williams provided us with comprehensive evidence this morning, including time-stamped access logs that match the unauthorized transfers. The second police officer was speaking into her radio, requesting additional units. We will need to take both of you in for questioning, she told Paul and Marie. You have the right to remain silent. As the officers continued reading them their rights, Marie finally looked at me, tears streaming down her face. Please, Andre, think about Jason. What will happen to him if we go to jail? For the first time since discovering the theft, I felt a pang of sympathy, not for my sister or her husband, but for my nephew caught in the middle of his parents' terrible choices. I will make sure Jason is taken care of, I promised. But this is not just about money anymore. This is about trust and the fact that you were willing to destroy our family for your own gain. Paul, now handcuffed, spat out one final threat. You will regret this. Family does not do this to family. I looked him directly in the eyes and replied, Real family does not steal $60,000 and then use my mother health as leverage. You made your choice. Now, you can live with the consequences. The months that followed were among the hardest of my life. The legal process was slow and painful. Paul was eventually convicted of fraud and identity theft, receiving a suspended sentence and mandatory restitution. Marie avoided charges by agreeing to testify against Paul and participating in a diversion program. Through my bank insurance and the fraud department investigation, I recovered about 70% of my money. The new credit cards had been frozen before Paul and Marie could use them, saving me from further theft. The hardest part was explaining everything to my mother. She was devastated at first, unable to comprehend how her daughter could participate in such a betrayal. But over time, she came to understand that, by holding Marie accountable, I had actually given her a chance to rebuild her life on honest terms. Marie filed for divorce 3 months after Paul's arrest. She called me sobbing, apologizing for everything. She admitted that Paul had been gambling heavily for years, losing tens of thousands of dollars, and that he had manipulated her into believing I somehow owed them financial support. While I was not ready to fully trust her again, I agreed to meet and talk. Our first reunion was awkward and tear-filled. "I do not expect you to forgive me," she said, her eyes red and puffy. "What we did was unforgivable. But I want you to know that I am getting help now. Therapy, financial counseling, everything. I want to be the sister you deserved all along." Jason came to live with me for a few weeks during the summer while Marie got settled in a small apartment. We spent hours talking about his future, his dreams of becoming a programmer like me. I started a new college fund for him, but this time I made my mother the custodian. Trust would need to be rebuilt slowly. The whole experience taught me painful but necessary lessons about boundaries, even with family. Love does not mean allowing yourself to be taken advantage of. Sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is hold someone accountable for their actions. I did not cut Marie out of my life completely, but our relationship changed. I no longer offered financial help, instead pointing her toward resources to help herself. I attended her therapy sessions occasionally as we worked through the damaged trust between us. As for Paul, I have not spoken to him since the day of his arrest. Some bridges once burned cannot be rebuilt, nor should they be. These days, I am more careful about who I allow into my inner circle family or not. I have learned that respect and trust must be earned and maintained, not automatically granted because of shared DNA. Sometimes the most important boundaries are the ones we set with those closest to us. I wonder, have you ever had to establish difficult boundaries with loved ones? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about navigating complex family dynamics. Share this video with someone who might need to hear that it is okay to stand up for yourself, even against family. Thank you for listening, and remember that true family builds you up, never tears you down.